you ever see the DreamWorks movie, The Prince of Egypt? It's a fun movie, but here's one of my complaints. I don't think that the animated Moses looks all that much like the real Moses. Now, I've never actually seen the real Moses, but follow me on this. In Stephen's speech in Acts, we're told that Moses was 40 when he left Egypt. Then another 40 years before God shows up on Mount Horeb. So that cool scene where Moses sees the burning bush, where's all the gray? I mean, that dude still got all of his hair. DreamWorks aside, do you remember the conversation Moses has with God? God tells Moses that he's heard the cry of his people. He's seen the oppression of the Israelites. Then he sends Moses to Pharaoh to bring his people out. If you recall, Moses is not so sure about the plan. So in essence, he asks, who shall I say sent me? Exodus 3:14 tells us God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you were to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. I am who I am. In Hebrew, it's Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. Literally, it's I will be who I will be. That divine name shows up in a unique but important way in Revelation. Last time we looked at the song sung by the living creatures. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. The first half of the line, as I mentioned, echoes Isaiah chapter 6, verse 3. But what about the second half? Who was and is to come. Now, following the exile, as many Jews were dispersed outside the promised land, Jewish thought was progressively translated into Greek concepts. God's statement, I will be who I will be, began to be interpreted among Hellenistic Jews as the God who is and who was, adding to it this broadened sense of God's eternality. In Revelation 4, verse 8, you could say they're just echoing the divine name given in Exodus 3. But there's an addition, isn't there? Not only is the Lord Almighty Yahweh the one who was and is, he is to come. What does that mean? It's talking about return. God is the one who is coming to render right judgment and restore all things. Psalm 96:13 tells us, let all creation rejoice before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world in righteousness and the people in his faithfulness. Isaiah 40 verse 10 says, behold the Lord God who will come with a strong hand, and his arm shall rule for him. Behold, his reward is with him and his work before him. That is what it means for God to come. This line, who was and is to come, doesn't just show up here. It's repeated 3 times in Revelation, in 1:4, 1:8, now in 4:8. But check this out. It also shows up again in Revelation chapter 11, verse 17, and Revelation 16, verse 5. But in each case now something is missing. Let's start with Revelation 11. And the 24 elders who were seated on their thrones before God fell on their faces and worshiped God, saying, we give thanks to you, Lord God Almighty, the one who is and who was, because you have taken your great power and have begun to reign. Here's chapter 16. Then I heard the angel in charge of the waters say, you are just in these judgments, O Holy One, you who are and who were. Do you see what's changed? Yeah, the one who was to come has fallen off. Now why? Because he has come. Chapter 11, he's come. Chapter 16, he's come. That's going to be important as we begin to interpret Revelation as a series of different windows, like the dreams Joseph interprets for Pharaoh or the apocalyptic visions in Daniel, rather than a linear story like 1st or 2nd Samuel. But for us, the takeaway right now, particularly during this season of Advent, is to allow this promise of his coming to build our anticipation and ground our hope with confidence that God will do what he says. The God who was and is, he is to come. In fact, as Revelation 22 tells us, he is coming soon. Have a blessed week.